The morning began like any other, quiet, pale, almost fragile. And then the sky burned gold. Captain Alara Vance froze mid-step, boots sinking into the red dust of Kalis IV as the horizon erupted in shimmering light. Above her, something vast tore through the clouds, an object of beauty and terror descending like a blade dipped in sunlight. The air vibrated with energy. Her visor flickered with alerts. Every sensor screamed threat detected. And yet, her heart whispered awe. She had been trained to face death, not beauty. And what came from the sky that day was both. The alien vessel landed without a sound. It did not crash or thunder, it bloomed. Metallic petals unfolded from a central core, reflecting twin suns across the scorched plain. The silence that followed was not peace. It was reverence. Around Alara, human soldiers raised their weapons, fingers trembling. The hum of plasma rifles mixed with ragged breaths. They had heard of the Velar Empire, the ancient conquerors who turned worlds into dust, the race who had driven humanity to its knees a century ago. And now, one of their ships had come to finish what history began. Alara didn't raise her rifle. Something about the ship, its movement, its light, the almost sacred hum that rippled through the ground felt different. Not warlike, not hateful, almost. "Searching, Captain," whispered Lieutenant Marin behind her. "Orders?" "Hold fire," Alara said quietly, her voice steady though her pulse thundered in her ears. "Not until we know what we're facing." The vessel opened. Light, soft and golden, spilled forth, brighter than any flame, yet gentle as sunrise. The shape that stepped out silenced every breath, every heartbeat. She was unlike any alien Alara had ever seen, tall, luminous, ethereal. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver. Her hair flowed as if underwater, and her eyes, two violet stars, looked straight into Alara's soul. The Queen of Velar had come in person. She wore no armor, carried no weapon. She walked with the calm certainty of one who ruled without needing to prove it. When she spoke, her voice resonated like music made of wind and thunder. "Human," she said, each syllable vibrating through the bones. "You are the one who stayed when your kind fled." "Why?" The words hit harder than any bullet. Alara swallowed, her throat dry. Around her, her soldiers waited for her command. But this moment was not one for commands. It was one for truth. "I stayed," Alara said finally, her voice quiet but firm. "Because someone has to remind the stars that we're not just survivors, we're dreamers." The Queen tilted her head, expression unreadable. "Dreamers," she echoed softly. "A dangerous word. Dreams start wars. They end them too." Then she took a single step forward, the air trembling with her presence. "Kneel, dreamer," she said, her tone neither cruel nor kind. "Let me see if your dreams are worth sparing." Alara felt every gaze on her. Her soldiers, the sky. Even history itself seemed to hold its breath. She removed her helmet slowly, letting it fall to the dust with a dull, metallic thud. Her dark hair caught the alien light as she sank to her knees. Her armor clinked softly. The ground was cold, the dust dry beneath her palms. She bowed her head, not in submission but in defiance of pride, and then the impossible happened. The Queen moved. Slowly, gracefully, she lowered herself until the silver crown upon her head touched the same ground as Alara's knees. The alien Queen bowed first. A ripple of disbelief swept through both armies. Even the wind seemed to pause. Alara lifted her gaze, eyes wide. "Your Majesty, why would you—" The Queen's voice was calm, melodic. "Your kneel was faith, mine is truth. I bow not to species nor strength, but to courage when I see it." For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The suns above cast halos around the two figures, one human, one alien, kneeling in mutual recognition. Alara rose slowly, heart trembling. "Then what happens now?" she whispered. The Queen's expression softened into something that might have been a smile. "Now," she said quietly, "we begin again." And as the twin suns flared behind them, their light spilling across the broken battlefield, humanity's story changed, not with a war cry, but with a bow that shook the heavens. Silence, pure, electric silence, blanketed the plain. Even the winds dared not disturb the dust where two civilizations had just shared a moment that defied history. Captain Alara Vance stood slowly, eyes locked on the radiant figure before her. The alien Queen straightened too, her silver crown catching the twin suns. The world felt impossibly still, as if time itself had stopped to understand what it had just witnessed. Behind Alara, human soldiers stared in disbelief. Some lowered their weapons without realizing it. Others simply stood frozen, caught between confusion and awe. One whispered, she bowed. To us? Alara didn't answer. She could barely breathe. The Queen's voice carried across the open plain, smooth and resonant like a distant choir. Your people kneel in humility, she said, and mine kneel only to truth. But truth does not belong to any one species. Her words sank deep into the hearts of those listening. They weren't a command, they were a confession. Alara gathered her courage and stepped forward. Why come here, Queen of Velar? Why me? The Queen studied her with eyes that glowed like dying stars. Because the galaxy is tired of kings and tired of war. I came to see if the stories of humanity were real. What stories? Alara asked softly. That you are the ones who dream while bleeding, that you create even as you crumble, that you endure. Alara felt the wind shift between them. It carried the scent of dust and ash, but also renewal, like the first breath after rain. The Queen extended her hand, delicate and alien, yet strangely human in gesture. Rise, Alara Vance of Earth, Alara hesitated. Then, taking a steadying breath, she reached out and clasped that luminous hand. It was warm, alive. Not cold metal, not strange texture, just warmth. When their hands met, something unseen pulsed through the ground. The air shimmered faintly, a ripple of light spreading outward as if the universe had acknowledged the connection. Behind her, Ilara's second in command, Marin whispered in disbelief, What are you doing? Making history, Alara replied quietly. The Queen released her hand, her expression unreadable. History does not interest me, Captain. Futures do. A sound broke through the stillness, the rumble of approaching transports. On the horizon, armored convoys advanced across the plains, carrying Earth's higher command. Alara's comlink crackled. Captain Vance, stand by. You are to detain the alien presence immediately. Alara's heart sank. Humanity's fear was arriving faster than understanding could. The Queen, however, didn't flinch. She turned toward the growing dust clouds. Your people do not yet understand what peace costs. They're afraid, Alara said. Then perhaps the Queen murmured. They will need to see what courage looks like again. The transports arrived, forming a steel barrier between the humans and the aliens. General Corrin, a man carved from command and pride, stepped out. His eyes locked on Alara, burning with accusation. You kneeled before an enemy? He thundered. You shamed our uniform, Captain? Alara didn't move. I showed respect where respect was given. Given? Corrin spat. She's manipulating you. But the Queen interrupted, stepping forward with a calm so absolute it silenced the soldiers. General Corrin, she said, her voice soft but carrying power that made even the air vibrate. You command with fear. I command with truth. Tell me, which endures longer? Corrin's jaw clenched. You dare lecture me on endurance after your kind burned our worlds? I dare, the Queen said, her eyes unblinking, because I have watched empires fall for less hatred than yours. Alara felt her pulse surge. Her instinct screamed that one wrong word could reignite war. She raised her voice. Enough, both of you! The Queen turned her gaze toward her, expression softening. Then stop me, Captain Vance. Prove that peace is not weakness. Her words were a challenge, but not of violence. A challenge of faith. That night, as the stars rose above the alien plains, Alara sat by the dying glow of a campfire. Across from her stood the Queen, haloed by moonlight. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Alara broke the silence. When you bowed, what were you thinking? The Queen looked up at the stars, her voice almost a whisper. That perhaps just once the universe deserved to see pride yield to courage. Alara watched her, feeling something shift deep inside, a sense that everything she'd believed about strength, power, and victory was being rewritten. Somewhere in that fragile silence between them, an impossible truth took root. Two enemies, born from fear, forged by war, had begun something neither empire could have imagined. Not a treaty. Not an alliance, but understanding. And it had started with a single impossible bow. By dawn, the story had already spread, whispered across human camps, carried through alien networks, echoed in a dozen tongues. The Queen of Velar bowed to a human. For some it was impossible. For others, unforgivable. But for Captain Alara Vance, it was simply real. She had been there. She had seen it. The moment the galaxy trembled, not under weapons, but under humility. Yet legends travel faster than truth, and truth rarely survives the journey intact. By the third sunrise, both armies stood uneasy under the same sky. Human soldiers watched the aliens with suspicion. The Velar warriors returned the gaze with equal doubt. Their queen's gesture had broken centuries of fear, and that kind of peace frightened people more than war ever could. Alara woke to the sound of arguments outside her tent. The sharp tone of General Corrin cut through the morning air like a blade. "Captain Vance," he barked as she emerged, "you've caused enough confusion. Command is demanding an explanation." Alara met his glare without flinching. "There's nothing to explain. The Queen came to talk." Corrin slammed his glove onto the table. "Talk? She humiliated humanity before the galaxy. You kneeled before our enemy." Alara's voice remained calm, but her eyes burned. "And she bowed before me. If you can't see what that means, General, you're still fighting a war that's already over." Before Corrin could retort, a shadow fell across the tent. The alien queen entered without announcement, her presence silencing every voice. Her guard stopped at the threshold, no weapons, no threats, just silent watchfulness. Corrin turned toward her, anger clashing with fear. "You have no right." "I have every right," the queen said softly, her tone calm yet unyielding. "When your kind aimed weapons at my people, I answered with a bow. Do not speak to me of rights, General." The silence that followed felt like standing at the edge of a storm. Corrin's face darkened, but before he could speak again, Alara stepped between them. "Enough," she said firmly. "If we're going to survive what's coming, we'll need more than pride." The queen inclined her head slightly. "You understand, Captain? Pride builds walls. Trust builds bridges." That afternoon, a council formed, half human, half Velar. They met around a flickering fire in the open plain. No banners, no emblems, just faces marked by exhaustion and something fragile. Hope. It began awkwardly. Every sentence felt like walking on glass. Yet as the hours passed, the ice began to melt. Velar scientists shared their knowledge of terraforming. Human engineers offered data on sustainable habitats. Small things, insignificant on their own, began to weave threads of cooperation. Alara watched the queen speak, her words measured and calm. There was authority in her voice, but not the kind born of domination. It was the kind born of compassion, the strength to listen. Later that night, when most had gone to rest, Alara approached her by the dying fire. The queen stood gazing at the stars, her expression unreadable. "You don't look like a conqueror," Alara said softly. The queen turned, her violet eyes reflecting starlight. "And you don't look like prey." They shared a quiet laugh, brief, real, human. "I've seen 1,000 empires rise," the queen said, her voice faint. "And every one of them believed power would make them eternal. But none of them understood what you humans do. You fight not for empire, but for each other." Alara tilted her head. "You make it sound noble." "It is," the queen replied. "Nobility doesn't belong to crowns. It belongs to courage." For a moment they stood side by side, two leaders bound by something that transcended race and war. The fire crackled low, casting gold over their faces. One silver, one human, both weary of conflict. Alara broke the silence. "You risked everything by bowing." "Your people must hate it." "They do," the queen admitted. "To them I'm a heretic, a traitor to the throne, but I would rather be hated for ending a war than praised for continuing it." Alara looked away, feeling the weight of those words. "And what about my people? They don't trust me either." "Then we are both alone," the queen said gently. "But alone does not mean lost," the word struck deep. Alara nodded slowly. "So, what happens now?" The queen's gaze returned to the stars. "Now we teach them what peace looks like. Not in words, but in fire and trust." The wind picked up, scattering the embers between them, glowing like small stars. Two women, two enemies once destined to destroy each other, stood united by something rarer than victory, understanding, and somewhere far above, the galaxy watched, waiting to see whether their fragile trust would hold, or burn brighter than the war that made it. Peace, as Alara soon learned, was a fragile thing, beautiful, fleeting, and constantly under siege by those who feared it. Days turned to weeks on Kalis 4, and for a brief, trembling moment it felt as though history itself was healing. Human engineers and Velar scientists worked side by side. Soldiers who once aimed rifles across battlefields now shared rations beneath alien moons. Even laughter, awkward at first, began to echo through the camps. But peace is never born without enemies. Deep within the Velar fleet, not all accepted their queen's bow. To many, her act was not a gesture of strength. It was a wound to pride, a betrayal of their empire's ancient code. And among those who whispered in secret was General Thalrun, a commander forged from the old wars whose loyalty was to conquest, not compassion. Meanwhile, on the human side, whispers of treason grew louder. General Corrin's patience had long since frayed. Each day he received transmissions from Earth Command demanding answers. The Queen's bow is a deception, the messages said. She weakens us from within. Watch her. Watch Vance. And so he did. Ilara felt it in every meeting. The glances, the subtle pauses, the questions loaded with suspicion. Her reports were picked apart, her decisions second-guessed. The same people who had once called her a hero now called her reckless. One evening, as twin suns sank beneath the horizon, she stood atop the outpost's ridge, watching the alien sky shift from gold to indigo. The Queen approached quietly, her presence as calm as the night itself. "You are troubled," the Queen said. Ilara gave a dry laugh. "You could say that. My own command thinks I've lost my mind." The Queen regarded her with gentle amusement. "You have not lost your mind, Captain. You have merely stepped beyond their fear," Ilara sighed. "And what about yours? Your generals, do they still follow you?" The Queen's expression darkened. "Some do, others whisper of revolt. They see my bow as weakness, my mercy as corruption. They want the old empire back." Ilara turned to her. "Then we're both standing in the middle of a storm." "Indeed," the Queen murmured. "And storms, Captain Vance, do not destroy the sky, they cleanse it." Their shared silence spoke volumes. In that moment, two leaders, two women bound by defiance, understood the cost of what they were trying to build. Peace was not just a dream. It was a rebellion against every instinct the galaxy had ever known. The next morning shattered that fragile calm. Without warning, the Eastern communication array exploded, plumes of white fire rising like a beacon. Sirens howled across both camps. Human soldiers scrambled to arms while Velar warriors activated their bioshields. Amid the chaos, Ilara sprinted to the command station. "Report!" she shouted. Lieutenant Marin's voice came through the static. "Sabotage, Captain. Someone breached the power core remotely. Signals point to off-world interference." Ilara's heart sank. "Velar?" "We can't confirm," Marin said. "But the system logs show a Velar encryption key." Before Ilara could respond, the door burst open. General Corrin stormed in, flanked by soldiers. "I knew it," he bellowed. "Your alien friends turned on us." Ilara glared at him. "You don't know that." "I don't need to. The evidence speaks for itself." Behind him, the alien queen entered, unarmed, calm, radiant even amid the panic. Her guards stayed outside, hands raised to show peace. "Enough," she said firmly. "We did not do this." Corrin turned, fury in his eyes. "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to think," the Queen replied. Ilara stepped between them, her voice sharp with authority. "Stop it. This is exactly what whoever planted that bomb wants, for us to turn on each other." Her words struck like lightning, freezing the room in tension. Corrin's eyes flicked between her and the Queen. "Then you'd better find proof fast, Captain. Because if you don't, I will." He stormed out, leaving silence thick as smoke behind him. The Queen's gaze followed him, sorrow flickering across her face. "Your kind burns bridges faster than we can build them." Ilara exhaled, exhausted. "So does yours." "We're not so different." The Queen turned to her slowly, violet light glimmering in her eyes. "That is what frightens them most." Outside, the fire still smoldered, staining the night sky red. From orbit, General Thalrun watched through the viewport of his warship, a cruel smile curving across his face. "Let them believe each other's lies," he whispered. "Let trust burn." And on the surface below, beneath the fractured piece of Kalasthor, two women, each betrayed by their own kind, prepared to face the storm they both knew was coming. The fires of betrayal burned for 3 long days. The once shared camps now stood divided by invisible lines. Humans on one side, Velar on the other, both armed, both afraid. The uneasy peace that Ilara Vance and the alien queen had built teetered on the edge of collapse, and high above, in the endless dark, General Thalrun's fleet descended. He did not come with diplomacy. He came with vengeance, His ships blotted out the suns, casting vast shadows over Kalis IV. Each vessel was a memory of the old Velar Empire, cruel, efficient, merciless. Their weapons glowed with the light of annihilation. His voice thundered through every comm channel, translated into human and Velar alike. The Queen has fallen to human weakness. The Velar Empire bows to no one. I will burn this world clean of her shame, and the humans who infected her with mercy. Panic spread like wildfire. Soldiers ran to defensive stations. Alarms screamed across the plains. For a moment it seemed inevitable that the fragile thread of peace would snap under the weight of old hatred. Inside the command dome, Ilara and the Queen stood shoulder to shoulder as the sky filled with descending warships. The air trembled with the hum of engines and the metallic whisper of dread. Ilara turned to her. We can't win this fight. Not against that. The Queen's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. Then we do not fight to win, Captain. We fight to remind them what they've forgotten. Which is? The Queen looked at her, violet eyes fierce. That even fire can choose not to burn. Moments later, the bombardment began. Blue plasma rained from the sky, slamming into the surface in violent ripples of energy. The ground quaked. Dust storms swallowed the outpost. Ilara barked orders through the chaos. Shields up. Evacuate the lower decks. Get the wounded below ground. Her soldiers obeyed, their fear buried beneath discipline. But she knew, without the Velar fleet's help, humanity's line would crumble in hours. Then, through the haze, the Queen's ships, those still loyal, rose to meet Thal Run's armada. Light clashed against darkness. Silver fire cut through the heavens. The sound of it shook the bones. Inside the storm of destruction, Ilara's comm crackled. It was Marin, her lieutenant, shouting through static. Captain! The Queen's calling for you. She's going to the front. Ilara didn't hesitate. She sprinted through the collapsing corridors, emerging into the open as lightning danced across the alien sky. The Queen stood before her ship, surrounded by her royal guard. You can't go alone, Ilara shouted. The Queen turned, serene even in chaos. A queen leads, Captain. She does not hide behind walls. Then I'm coming with you. The Queen's lips curved slightly. Of course you are. Moments later, they were aboard her flagship. The bridge pulsed with living light, organic structures that responded to the Queen's very heartbeat. Through the viewports, Thal Run's fleet loomed closer, firing relentlessly. Signal him, the Queen commanded. Her officers hesitated, but obeyed. A holographic projection appeared. Thal Run, his armor dark as the void, eyes burning with fury. You betrayed us, he hissed. You bowed to lesser creatures. You shamed the Velar name. The Queen stood tall, voice steady. I bowed to courage, not weakness. The only shame is how blind you've become. You've gone soft, Thal Run spat. You let the humans poison you. If compassion is poison, she said coldly, then may it spread. His roar shook the comms. Then die with them! The transmission cut. Weapons charged. Ilara looked to the Queen. If you fight him, you'll destroy both fleets. I know, the Queen whispered. That's why I won't. Before Ilara could ask, the Queen placed her hand upon the control sphere. The ship's core pulsed brighter, brighter still until it became light itself. Wait, what are you doing? Ilara cried. The Queen met her gaze with quiet resolve, showing him a truth that weapons can't erase. And then the flagship released its energy, not as a blast, but as a wave of radiance. It spread outward like dawn, touching every ship, every life, every heart within its reach. Velar weapons powered down. Human cannons fell silent. The sky shimmered with luminous arcs of peace, an energy that disabled every engine without killing a soul. Thal Run's voice broke through the static. What have you done? The Queen's voice echoed across the channels. I have chosen peace, General, and peace has chosen me. Her ship descended slowly, its light dimming. Ilara rushed to her side as the Queen sank to her knees, weakened but smiling. It's over, Ilara whispered. For now, the Queen said softly. But the universe will remember this day, not as the end of war, but as the moment war forgot its purpose. Outside, silence fell over Kalis IV. For the first time in 1,000 years, the stars looked down upon a galaxy without the echo of guns. Only the lingering hum of two souls who dared to believe that peace could fight harder than fire ever could. The world was quiet after the storm. No engines roared, no weapons hummed, only the soft whisper of wind through the alien plains of Kalis IV. The battlefield had become a graveyard of motionless ships, their lights dim, their weapons dead, and at the heart of that silence stood Alara Vance, her armor cracked and dusted in silver ash, cradling the fading form of the alien queen. The queen's silver skin had lost its glow, her energy, once bright as starlight, now shimmered faintly like the last ember in a dying fire. Around them, human and Velar soldiers gathered in stunned stillness, enemies no longer but witnesses. Ilara's voice trembled. "You saved them all. You stopped the war." The queen smiled weakly, her eyes reflecting the pale sunrise. "Peace always costs something, Captain. I simply paid my share." Ilara gripped her hand, desperate to hold on to the warmth before it faded. "There has to be another way. Something we can do to heal you." But the queen shook her head slowly. "You still think like a soldier. Not everything can be saved, Ilara, but everything can be taught." Her words hit deeper than any wound. Around them, the Velar guards bowed their heads, the humans lowering their weapons in silent reverence. The wind carried the soft sound of banners fluttering, no longer flags of conquest but of mourning. Ilara felt tears burn her eyes. "If you die here, the peace you made might die with you." The queen's hand tightened weakly around hers. "Then make sure it doesn't." Her voice was fading, but her gaze, steady and endless, never wavered. "You humans, you have something the stars forgot long ago. You believe in impossible things even when the universe doesn't." Ilara swallowed the ache in her throat. "You believe too." A faint smile curved the queen's lips. "Because I met you." Then, with what little strength she had left, the queen reached toward the control sphere embedded in her chest plate, a crystalline heart that pulsed faintly with alien light. "This," she whispered, "is my Karathal, my soulstone. It holds the light of every queen before me. Take it. It will protect your people when I cannot." Ilara's eyes widened. "I can't. This belongs to your people, not mine." The queen shook her head. "It belongs to those who remember mercy. You are its keeper now." Her hand guided Ilara's toward the crystal. When Ilara's fingers touched it, a surge of warmth flowed through her body. Memories, visions, voices that weren't hers. She saw ancient Velar cities rising like temples of light, the faces of rulers who'd carried this same stone through countless ages. And then, she saw the queen as a child, curious, defiant, standing beneath a golden sky and asking her teacher, "Can stars forgive?" When Ilara blinked, tears streaked her dust-covered face. "I'll keep your light safe. I swear it." The queen's breathing grew shallow. Her voice was now a whisper carried on the wind. "Then I can rest." Ilara leaned closer. "You'll live on in every story and every sky." The queen exhaled softly. "Then let the stars remember that once a queen and a soldier kneeled together, and neither bowed alone." And with that, the light in her eyes dimmed. Silence fell across the battlefield. The wind slowed, the air itself holding its breath, as if the world refused to accept what had just been lost. Ilara knelt there for a long time, the Karathal glowing faintly in her hands, its light pulsing like a heartbeat refusing to die. Around her, both human and Velar soldiers began to kneel, one after another, until the entire plain was a sea of bent heads and bowed hearts. No command, no orders, just reverence. The sun rose higher, casting light over the queen's still form. The air shimmered faintly, particles of silver drifting upward carried into the sky. Her body dissolved into light, scattering across the horizon until she was part of the dawn itself. Ilara stood slowly, feeling the weight of both grief and purpose pressing into her chest. The Karathal pulsed once more, bright and warm. Behind her, Lieutenant Marin approached carefully. "Captain, what do we do now?" Ilara looked up at the pale horizon where the queen's light had vanished. "We build," she said softly. "Not walls, bridges." And as the last traces of silver dust faded into the sky, a new sun rose over Kalistar, brighter than it had ever been. The war was over, but the story of what came after had only just begun. Weeks turned into months, and the scars of war began to heal, not because they were forgotten, but because they were remembered with purpose. The great battlefield of Kalis IV had transformed into something new. Where trenches once gaped, gardens of light now grew. The broken hulls of ships were repurposed into homes and learning halls. Humans and Velar worked side by side, not as conquerors or survivors, but as architects of a fragile peace. Captain Alara Vance, now commander of the United Restoration Corps, stood upon the same ridge where she had first seen the sky burn gold. The wind carried the scent of alien blossoms, soft and electric. In her palm, the carathal glowed with quiet warmth, pulsing like a living heart. Every day she felt its hum, a reminder of the alien queen's final words, and the vow Ilara had made to her. Marin approached, his uniform stained with soil rather than ash. "You should see the West Dome, Captain. The humans finished the first greenhouse with Velar tech. It's beautiful." Ilara smiled faintly, eyes still on the horizon. "That's the point, isn't it? To make something beautiful out of what tried to destroy us." Marin nodded. "The Senate wants to name the colony after the Queen." Ilara turned to him, emotion flickering behind her eyes. She'd have hated that. She never wanted worship, only understanding. A quiet laugh escaped Marin. "Then what do we call it?" Ilara's gaze drifted upward, to the twin suns slowly rising in the alien sky. "Call it Vareth," she said. "It means rebirth in her tongue." He nodded softly, the name settling into history like a promise written in light. But that evening, as the suns dipped low and the stars began to bloom, Ilara returned alone to the Sanctum of Dawn, the memorial built where the Queen had fallen. The great spire of glass and metal shimmered in both human and Velar designs, two cultures woven into one heartbeat. Ilara stepped forward, the carathal glowing brighter as she approached the altar. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "The colonies are rebuilding. Humans and Velar, they laugh together now. Eat together. Dream together." The stone pulsed faintly in reply, as if the Queen's spirit heard her through the silence of stars. "But sometimes," Ilara continued, voice trembling slightly, "I still hear the echoes. The fear, the doubt. Some humans still think the Velar will turn on us. Some Velar still call us intruders. I try to be strong, but it's hard." She closed her eyes. "You would have known what to say." For a long moment, only the wind answered. Then the carathal brightened suddenly, casting ripples of silver light across the chamber walls. A soft voice, not quite sound, not quite memory, filled the air around her. "Strength is not the absence of fear, Ilara. It is the courage to keep walking through it." Ilara's breath caught. The voice was faint, fading, but unmistakable. "You have carried my light longer than I could have. Now, let it carry you." And then, the carathal's light spread outward, projecting images in the air like a dream. Children of both species playing beneath twin suns, cities blooming across alien worlds, ships traveling not for conquest but for exploration. Ilara watched, tears streaming down her face. "You were right," she whispered. The stars did remember. When the light faded, she placed the carathal upon the altar. It glowed one final time, embedding itself within the crystal structure until it became part of the monument itself, forever shining, a beacon for generations to come. Ilara stood there in silence for a while, then turned toward the horizon. The twin suns rose higher, their light mixing gold and violet, human and Velar, painting the world in hues of unity. As she walked back toward the settlement, she passed children chasing each other through the fields, their laughter echoing beneath the vast alien sky. Some had human eyes, some Velar markings, but none seemed to notice the difference. For the first time since the war, Ilara allowed herself to laugh too. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "We did it." Far above, among the endless stars, a faint shimmer of silver light pulsed like a bow from one soul to another, and across galaxies, the legend began to spread, of the human who kneeled before a queen, and the queen who bowed first. A story of defiance turned into devotion, of enemies who chose empathy, and of a moment when two hearts changed the fate of worlds. As long as stars burned, their story would never fade. It would live on, in every whispered prayer for peace, in every sunrise shared between species, and in every brave soul who dared to kneel not in surrender, but in understanding. Because once upon a time, on a world that had forgotten mercy, a queen and a soldier remembered it together, and the universe for the first time bowed back.